Hey guys, just a quick intro to the video. It's been a while. So this was pre-recorded a while ago from before the absence, so that's why it doesn't address it. So that's why I'm doing this little intro here. I'm sorry. Just genuinely, I'm sorry. It's been a while, and I've had these breaks before, but this was like before. In the instance of family coming over, lots and lots of family coming over, not having any time to record, not having any time to edit, because either I had no privacy, so I couldn't do videos, or the other issue was they were constantly asking me to do things, and I don't get to see them very often, so I had to, and so that took away from my editing time. But that's still inexcusable because I should have found a time, so I apologize. But thank you guys for tuning in. And right after this will be the video, which by the way is doing very well, so thanks for that. And spoiler alert, I'm back. Hello, my name is Jumbles Gaming and welcome back to, now I believe it would be part 3 because part 1 had to be cut in 2. But welcome to part 3 of the Seahawks rebuild as of 1995 or 1996, as you see there, because we've managed to go through the first season. We've got the teams set up. John Freeze, hopefully the quarterback of the future for us for a long time. Don't think so though. Steve Broussard and Lamar Smith rather, could be interesting. Eric Dugan, definitely an interesting receiver. However, we got Terrell Owens and Joey Galloway at wide receiver. And then we got Jonathan Ogden and John Runyon. And really just a great team overall, I would say. And so let's just get into it. For our playbook, I think we're still going to be running the pistol, or we're going to be running the fun and gun, potentially. A shotgun-esque kind of system. Oh, that's for a different video. I like to see what trick and special is. So we got 99 rollout, 28 jet sweep, 27 end around, 29 end around. I like it. I think that's what we're going to roll with, though, is it fun and gun. I think our offense is going to be slightly more pass heavy, simply because John Freeze showed some potential. Plus, we got Joey Galloway, who showed some potential. And then T.O., who is just going to be awesome to have on this team. So, we get into game 1 of the NFL season. And Seattle looks like they should be better, but our defense is just bad, so who knows, yeah. John Freeze, just horrendous. Lamar Smith, good. T.O., great debut. Winston Moss, good. This team is still in rebuild mode. It's about building up these receivers for me. So even if we lose a lot of games, I won't be upset. It's just a question of, are we getting the receivers the ball? And so far, T.O.'s getting about 50 yards a game, which isn't horrendous. I would like to see Galloway and company get the ball more. But we'll have to go through the quarter and see from there. Another loss, but more passing yards, and that's the big thing, is can we get our quarterback the ball? Because we need to throw the ball. T.O., Joey Galloway, that's what we're looking for. We're going to go a lot faster than we did for the first season, just because we know what we want now. In fact, I think we go 3 wide. We get Lamar Smith there, Eric Dugan there, T.O., Joey, Ricky Prohl. We pass the ball more. Yeah, we're going to be hopefully a lot more electric offense. And our passing game actually goes down, believe it or not. But I think it's because we're adding Ricky Prohl instead of another running back. But the passing game skyrocketed, and that's what matters to me. We won, in fact. John Freeze, great game. Big thing, T.O., 6-7 yards. Ricky Prohl had himself a game. 19 yards for Joey Galloway. It's a little disappointing. But so far, nothing crazy. Boomer Esiason leading the team so far. Scott Mitchell's kind of become something interesting. Steve Boerlin, John Elway, Ron Redcliffe, kind of surprising. Redcliffe. Brad Johnson, awesome. Justin Hill, don't know who that is. Jim Everett on the Saints, doing his thing, just like he did last year. Chris Chandler and a young Brett Favre, who did not start at all last year, playing this year and doing all right for himself. Definitely interesting because they had a very interesting situation last season. Lamar Smith actually in the top 10 for receiving yards, believe it or not. You got Leroy Hort, Emmitt Smith having himself a great season so far. Rod Bernstein, who was a monster last year, hoping to do what he did last year. Sacks, nothing crazy. Definitely a lot of interesting players though. Reggie White though, having a definite continuation of last year. Hopefully he can do what people were hoping for Bruce Smith, or what Bruce Smith did in real life rather. Simeon Rice looking pretty good so far in his rookie debut. And let's just get back into it. Actually, first we're going to look at the college draft, or actually can we scout the upcoming draft? If not, that's fine. Curious if anyone made the Hall of Fame. Gary Anderson, Eddie Murray. Yeah, and then a bunch of head coaches that made the Hall of Fame. Cool story. Now we're going to go to the Chiefs game. Here we go. The Seahawks are the favorite just because Kansas City looks really bad. But it's anyone's game because both teams are trying to tank, and Seattle wins pretty easily, actually. Rich Gann not doing so well. John Freeze, kind of disappointing. Rick Meyer did pretty good. Lamar Smith had himself a game, though. T.O. did his thing. Joey Galloway had a pretty good game. At this point, we're kind of just breezing through the season because we don't expect anything crazy. We beat Oakland, though. John Freeze had himself a game. Lamar Smith played great. Joey Galloway, T.O., Ricky Prohl are actually playing too well, believe it or not. Thankfully, it doesn't matter too much. Detroit probably going to beat us. I mean, not too surprised. We threw the ball well, though. 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. John Freeze doing his thing. T.O., his first 100-yard game, I believe. Lamar Smith had himself a good game. Joey Galloway getting a touchdown. Now we go into the halfway mark after this game. And Denver should win. They're 6-1, but I mean, their defense is horrendous. And we just go ham on that defense. 6 touchdowns for John Freeze, 299 yards, and 4 touchdowns for Lamar Smith. T.O. gets 1 catch for 70 yards and a touchdown. Joey Galloway gets 2 receptions for 22 yards and a touchdown. This team is just going ham. And so for the leaders, we have Lamar Smith, second in the league in receiving yards as a running back. We have John Freeze in the top 5 in the conference for passing yards with a little less than 2,000. Then we got Lamar Smith in the top 6 for rushing yards and number 1 in the conference in receiving yards. Lamar Smith is having himself an MVP contending season. And for all-time leaders, we have Dan Marino at 51,000, John Elway, Warren Moon, Boomer Esiason, Jim Kelly, Dave Craig, Jim Everett, Randall Cunningham, Steve Young, Vinny Tess. Basically people you'd expect. Chris Carter's fighting to go up. Kevin Martin's doing himself some service. Jake Reed doing himself some stuff. Rod Bernstein, believe it or not, is a running back who's also made the top In rushing yards, Marcus Allen, though, with 10,000 yards, doing himself a service. Barry Sanders, very disappointing. Didn't even start the season so far. Thurman Thomas, same deal. Emmitt Smith's been doing alright, though. 858 yards. He could fight for that number 1 spot if he keeps this up. Rod Bernstein, obviously a contender. Reggie White leading the league with 160 sacks all time. Bruce Smith with only 130. Although, he's having a big rebound year, so who knows. Anyone else crazy? Kevin Green, 108 sacks. 3 sacks this year, 3 sacks this year, 8 last year. Leslie O'Neal, not been too great recently, but all time he's doing alright for himself. And then now we continue. We look at standings real quick, though. The Colts are leading the AFC East, tied with the New York, I assume, Jets. And then we got Houston, the Houston Oilers. We got the Houston Oilers leading 6-2. I had to clarify because Houston Texans will soon be a team. Although, will they? If the Houston Oilers stay in Houston, what happens? We'll see. Maybe this will be an alternate history where the Houston Oilers stay in Houston. Maybe the Cleveland Browns stay in Cleveland instead of going to Baltimore. Just a thought. Then you got Pittsburgh as the runner-up. Then in the AFC West, you have Denver number 1 at 6-2. And Seattle at 4-4. But, and a big note, they are 4-2 in the division. That's a big factor right there. If it goes to a tiebreaker, Seattle will win. Unless San Diego doesn't lose for the rest of the division. In which case, unfortunate. Seattle has 2 more games in the division, though. San Diego has 4 more. So if Seattle wins the next 2, I'm pretty sure it's guaranteed. In a tiebreaker, Seattle will make the playoffs. Oakland is 2-6, nothing crazy. And we go to the NFC. Dallas is 8-0 with Washington behind them at 5-3. Tampa Bay is at 8-0 with Detroit 6-2. The young Carolina Panthers at 5-3 in a 3-way tie with the New Orleans Saints and the San Francisco 49ers. That'll be interesting. Right now, it looks like Carolina's going to win the division simply off of a 4-1 division record so far. Although New Orleans could tie them in that, it's possible. Interestingly enough, Carolina has an 18 points for and 20 points against, yet has a 5-3 record and a 4-1 in the division, which means they must be getting completely blown out outside of their division. Anyways, finances, Seattle's doing its thing. Not really when you think about it, because we're at negative 1.2 million. In fact, Denver, Buffalo, really, no one's doing great. It's not good. Seattle's at D- in scouting and 19 in power rank. Hey, I feel threatened by that. If the playoffs were to happen today, the Seahawks would make the playoffs, by the way. But we said that last year, and then it all fell apart. So now we have the Cincinnati Bengals, whose offense is just atrocious, which surprisingly they're worse than us. And ooh, baby, John Freeze does his thing. And Steve Smith does his thing. T.O., 4 receptions for 54 yards. Joey Galloway, 5 receptions for 63 yards and 2 touchdowns. Ricky Prohl, 4 receptions for 55 yards and a touchdown. Ronnie Harris for 3 receptions and 41 yards and a touchdown, spreading the ball out. And we got to check on the defense here in a little bit because we really haven't been doing that. Now we got the Cleveland Browns, who look pretty good. In fact, they are a 1-point favorite. It'll be interesting. It's in Cleveland, but Seattle has a better record. Oh, no. The Cleveland Browns win. But you can't be really upset with John Freeze. Both teams just had a offensive power. Both teams essentially reaching 400 yards of offense. Both teams averaging more than 5 yards per rush. Both teams having a higher than 65% completion rating. Both teams having over 18 first downs. Both teams having 0 turnovers. it was just a great time for both offenses. John Freeze, 27 of 40 for 4 touchdowns, 350 yards. Vinny Tez with 325 for 5 touchdowns. Lamar Smith with 180 total yards. Ricky Powers with 214 total yards. T.O. with 23 yards on 2 receptions. Joey Galloway, 4 receptions, 58 yards. Prohl, 61 yards, touchdown. Rob Thomas, 37 yards and a touchdown. Tom Brandt with a sack, the rookie doing his thing. Anthony Pleasant with 2 sacks. Keenan McCardle with 10 receptions and 164 yards. Anyways, we get back to the season, and it's the Chargers versus the Seahawks. And this is a big game to decide the playoffs. And Seattle loses, which effectively means they will be behind the Chargers in a tiebreaker, as well as they're now 2 games behind the Chargers. John Freese did not have himself a game. No one really played well except Joey Galloway. In fact, T.O. did not play at all. Joey Galloway, 74 receptions, or 3 receptions for 74 yards. Ronnie Harris at least showed up with 6 receptions for 87 yards. Sinclair got a sack. Stan Humphries for the Chargers, 3 touchdowns and a pick. 97 yards from Mark C.A. A pick. 13 tackles, rather, I'm looking at now. For Junior Seau, I was looking at Tyrone Williams. Alright. And the final game before the 3 quarters of the season are finished. And it's the New York Jets at 6-5 with a very good offense and a very good defense. They're a very balanced team. Whereas Seattle's very good run game. And Seattle loses, but it wasn't a horrible game. Steve Smith, 93 yards. Lamar Smith, 48 yards. Ricky Prohl, 75 yards. T.O. was 62, which is good. Boomer doing his thing. Ryan Yarbrough, 97 yards. Anything crazy? Not really, besides that. Anyways, for our leaders, we have the AFC, John Freese is top 5. Lamar Smith, top 5 as well for receiving yards. Lamar Smith also top 10 in rushing yards for his conference. Sacks, no one. Interceptions, Gary Carlton at 9th with 4. For both conferences, John Freese, top 10. And that's about it. Reggie White with 14 sacks. Scott Mitchell doing his thing. John Elway doing his thing. Brad Johnson. Guys you'd expect. Jake Reed doing his thing recently. His thing. Reggie White doing his thing. He's going to be an all-time. Warren Sapp with 10 sacks is awesome. Warren Sapp has been great in his very, very young career so far. Anyone else to mention? Robert Porcher, always a consistent guy. Also, I want to look at the conferences just to look. Bruce Smith, 8.5 sacks. And that's about to report. I will say Warren Sapp looks like he will be able to break the record if he keeps this up. And for interceptions, Rod Woodson is your leader in interceptions so far. He has been great these last 4 years. Eugene Robinson right behind him. Oh, shoot, sorry. Now we look at our offensive players. John Freese, 3,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Lamar Smith, 145 rushes for 629 yards, 1 touchdown, and 52 receptions. Eric Dugan, 36 receptions, 269 yards, and a touchdown. T.O., who's had a great season so far, 36 receptions for 643 yards and 3 touchdowns. Joey Galloway, who has been slowed down due to injuries, 30 receptions for 448 yards and 6 touchdowns. Then you have Ricky Prohl, who's been a bit disappointing, with 33 receptions for 476 yards. I think you want to keep the offense as is because it has been very effective. I mean, John Freese easily having a great year. In fact, easily his best year, not even close. So you don't want to mess with that. So we're going to leave things as is. Even if we continue to lose, it's worth it because we're building for the future. The Chiefs, not a great team. And we proved that by obliterating them even without Joey Galloway. John Freese, 302 yards, 4 touchdowns. Lamar Smith, 142 total yards. Chris Warren, 49 total yards. Even Casey Brown out of nowhere with a touchdown. Eric Dugan, 43 yards. T.O. with 3 receptions for 88 yards. Ronnie Harris, who's been great recently, 4 receptions for 44 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think I'm willing to make the change now. We're benching Ricky Prohl to get in Ronnie Harris, who has been absolutely clutch recently. 2 touchdowns this game. 100 million sack. Chad Eaton a sack. And company. Rich Gannon getting absolutely shut out. Greg Hill doing good. And then that's about it, really. There was nothing else good for them. Now the Minnesota Vikings versus the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks are a pick-em game. And the reason why is because, well, they're two opposite teams. Minnesota's better at passing and stopping the pass, while Seattle's better at running and stopping the run. And the Seattle Seahawks win, throwing all over the Vikings. John Freese, 19 of 34 for 2 touchdowns and an interception. Lamar Smith, 169 total yards. T.O., 5 receptions for 103 yards. Ricky Prohl, now that he got benched, 2 receptions for 24 yards and a touchdown. Winston Moss, 14 tackles. Jason Fisk, 2 sacks for the Vikings. David Palmer, 113. Not really much to say. Corey Fuller, a pick and 4 tackles. That's cool. So now it's the Seahawks versus the Buccaneers. And the Buccaneers are heavily favorited. But if Seattle can win this game, Sorry, the sprinklers really threw me off when they turned on. If the Seahawks can win this game, that means something huge, absolutely huge for the Seahawks in terms of making the playoffs. And Seattle loses. John Freese, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns. Rick Meyer in for 68 yards and a touchdown. Lamar Smith. No one was really exciting. T.O., though, 3 receptions for 60 yards and a touchdown. And Ronnie Harris, 3 receptions for 68 yards. He has been looking great recently. An interception for Blackman, that's cool. Ron Reddycliffe. Never expected this guy to show up out of nowhere, but he's been doing it. Jerry Ellison looking pretty good. Lawrence Dawsey looking pretty good. And that's about it. Jeremy Reed, Brad Culpepper will make in place. Michael Hoost doing great. And the playoffs were happening today. Nothing good. Seattle, I believe, is officially eliminated the playoffs entirely, thanks to San Diego out of nowhere just going ham recently. And the Seahawks versus Packers. Seattle is the favorite to win this game. However, it's a lose-lose, really. Both teams can't throw the ball. Both teams are decent at running the ball. Both teams are pretty dang good at stopping the run. Both teams suck at passing. I feel like Seattle's going to win this just off throwing the ball. And they do off throwing the ball, like I said. Brett Favre, 14 of 31 for 1 touchdown interception. And then for the Seahawks, who went 8-8, 24 of 39 for 385 yards and 2 touchdowns, is John Freese. Lamar Smith, 200 yards, basically, 2 touchdowns. Casey Brown, nothing crazy. T.O., 2 receptions for 51 yards, can't complain. Joey Galloway, in his comeback game, 5 receptions and 110 yards with a touchdown. Let's go. I'm ecstatic about that. And let's talk about the defense. Chad Eaton a pick, but Jason Gill, which by the way, I don't know why I scoffed over that. That's a D tackle getting a pick. Let's go, boys. Jason Gilwell with a sack. Terry Wooden with a sack. Jerry Grevlees with a sack. Tyrone Stowe with a sack. And Thomas Smith with a sack. And if you look at that, the Seahawks have made the playoffs. With how the Seahawks have managed to get one of the wild card spots. So if you look at the AFC standings, the Colts, Oilers, Chargers, and Broncos have received the divisions / top notch. Cowboys, Buccaneers, and then Chargers, Oilers, Colts, Broncos, and then nothing there. and the Dolphins and Seahawks win the wild card spots. The lucky wild card spots. So we will be seeing the Seahawks in the playoffs. But first, let's take a look at the end of the season leaders. So, John Freese, top 4 in the league in passing yards. Lamar Smith, 7th, 10th, 9th, 8th, 7th in receiving yards. Not in the top 10 rushing, but when you're 7th in receiving yards, who cares? And then nothing for sacks. Interceptions, nothing. Alright, now we look at the conferences. John Freese, top 3 in the AFC for passing yards. 8th, I repeat, 8th in rushing yards for the AFC, as well as 3rd in receiving. Nothing for sacks. And for interceptions, nothing. Tackles, Winston Moss, who was a great tackler last year, plays even better with less games started. Teddy Bruschi in his first start ever. Our first season ever. 155 tackles, 6.5 sacks, and 2 picks. I think it's very possible he becomes Rookie of the Year. The future looks bright for that kid. For the NFC, Scott Mitchell. Hooey. Jake Reed. Hooey. He is something special. Emmitt Smith, who had himself a complete turnaround. Tony Brackens, Reggie White, and company. Also forgot to mention, where's our boy? There he is, Warren Sapp, 12 sacks for the season. For both conferences, Warren Sapp. Anyone crazy? Not really. Reggie White, 14.5 sacks. Ricky Powers for Cleveland, pretty cool. Emmitt Smith, Keenan McCardle, Ryan Yarborough, Lamar Smith, who, let's just say, Lamar Smith has been great. He's finally turning the edge. His first year, nothing crazy. His second year, he showed a little bit. But this year, he came out and just absolutely dominate, especially in the receiving game. He has been a star in the receiving game for this team. At 5'11", I was off by an inch. 224, he's a powerful runner who actually is quite quick. He's not very blazing fast, but he's got that change of direction and that power and good hands. And he is signed through 2002, so another 6 years they will have with him. Now we look at our players. We got John Freese, 4,200 yards, 38 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Complete turnaround from last year. This offense is what we're going to be sticking with, I think. Especially because we made the playoffs. Lamar Smith doing his thing. I'm glad we stick with our offense, by the way. Then you got Eric Dugan with 48 receptions for 365 yards and a touchdown. Then you had T.O. Oh, T.O., my dude. So close. Only 49 receptions, but for 945 yards and 4 touchdowns. That describes it pretty well. Superstar all over him. Joey Galloway had a down year with 35 receptions for 557 yards, but 7 touchdowns, so he's doing better in the touchdown game. Ronnie Harris, absolute breakout this year for him. 28 receptions for 445 yards and 3 touchdowns. Howard Ballard did his thing, I guess. 0.75 sacks allowed. Nothing crazy. Jeff Blackshear, Kevin Mulway. The peak being 90 looks really good, considering it was at like 86 at one point. Ray Roberts. John Runyon, 76 overall. The peak of 83 looks a lot better than what it was before. 6 sacks allowed, but nothing crazy. I will say it's a bit odd that they benched our boy Jonathan Ogden, who, by the way, has a peak of 89 now. And he will be our left guard, or left tackle, rather. Our defense, nothing crazy. Henry McMillian, 4 sacks. Chad Eaton, 2 sacks. Tom Brandt, 2 sacks. Cortez Candy, a sack. Winston Moss was the one highlight, I guess, for the defense. Because everything else looks meh. I mean, I guess you had Carlton Gray with 4 picks, 13 pass deflections, 71 tackles. That's pretty cool. Thomas Smith kind of took a step down. Brian Dawkins, 35 tackles, though. 2 pass deflections and a pick. Really showing that development. I mean, he's a 96 overall already. So the future is bright with him. Jay Bellamy, 33 tackles, 7 pass deflections, 2 picks. The picks went down, but he showed a little bit of something. And then Jeff Gravely's a rotating linebacker, which that's so broken. Even the game's like, no, he got 21 tackles. But I like how it says tackles per game, by the way. That's really cool. 99 tackles, 4.5 sacks as a rotating backup. In fact, we're putting him over Terry Wooden. I don't even know why Terry Wooden is starting. Dean Wells, we're probably going to replace Mike Barber. I think that's good. Special teams. Alright, I guess. Our guy Todd Peterson's probably going to need to be replaced soon because, well, the PATs he's been great, but field goals 7 of 8 last year, 3 of 5 for 30 to 39, 4 of 10 for 40 to 49, and never attempted a 50-pluser in his career. Field goal percentage plummeted. Last year, I was willing to keep him because he did so great, but this year, ooh. And then, when you look at Rick Tutton, Tutton was alright, I will say. Alright, I think is very fair. But now we're in the playoffs, and it's go time, boys.
If I'm honest, I'll just make you cry. And I don't wanna fight with you.